If I could please have your attention as you make your way to your seats. My name is Johnny Burtka, and I'm the Executive Director of the American Conservative. On behalf of our staff and Board of Trustees, I'd like to welcome you to our annual Gala. We gather here tonight for two principal reasons. First, to celebrate our history and to build a movement around the people, ideas, and institutions represented here in this room. And second, to honor the writers and financial supporters who have given of their time and talent to make the American Conservative a respected and indispensable voice in Washington and around the country. Thank you for all that you've done to help us accomplish our mission of promoting a Main Street conservatism that opposes unchecked power in government and business, promotes the flourishing of families and communities through vibrant markets and free people, and embraces realism and restraint in foreign affairs based on America's vital national interest. 3 years ago this summer, I found myself on my very first day on the job at the American Conservative, driving with our chairman, Jeremy Beer, in Rhode Island on the way to visit one of our supporters. And as we were driving down the road, Jeremy got a text on his phone with news that no media organization ever wants to hear. The website to the American Conservative had crashed. It simply was not working anymore. So Jeremy quickly pulled the car over to the side of the road and got on his phone to get to the bottom of the situation. Well, it turns out that earlier that morning, Rod Dreher had posted an interview with a guy by the name of J.D. Vance onto the American Conservative website, and J.D. had just come out with his book, Hillbilly Elegy, and the interview drove so much traffic to our website, literally millions of page views, that our server simply could not handle it. So it just crashed and shut down and took a dive. And you know the rest of the story. In a matter of weeks, JD's book climbed to the #1 spot on the New York Times best-selling list as he became a prophet of sorts of the Trump era, explaining from his own personal story and experience why conservatives and Americans should care about the economic and social anxieties plaguing America's heartland. And I knew there on my first day on the side of the road, up in Rhode Island, that this is the place that I needed to be, a true intellectual community that could serve as an ideas incubator for fresh thinking on the right, a place where writers would draw from the wisdom of the conservative intellectual tradition and apply that wisdom in fresh ways to the problems of the day. But more than fresh ways, it was also a place where writers could be provocative and take risks, like the courageous stand taken by our founding editors in 2002, when they stood with our libertarian friends against the Iraq War at great social and professional cost. A place that could serve as a home to build a movement for shaping what conservatism is and what it might become. And this purpose, to be a meeting ground where great minds and great ideas come together, is very much consistent with the founding vision that was written in the first editorial ever published in the American Conservative. That was actually written by Scott McConnell, who's with us here tonight. In that editorial, Scott wrote, "We will be different. Many voices will appear on the pages of the American Conservative, often in disagreement with one another. We are, of course, in considerable part Buchananite, but our mission is broader, to reignite the conversations that conservatives ought to have engaged in since the end of the Cold War, but have not." So 16 and a half years in, how are we doing? Well, about 6 months ago, we brought Jim Antle on board as our new editor-in-chief. You'll be hearing from Jim later tonight. And we also added Micah Maddox as our literary editor, who's with us this evening. We're nearly finished with an overhaul of our website, which should launch shortly. And in the past year, we've held a dozen events, including 2 major foreign policy conferences in the U.S. Senate, with Senator Rand Paul as a keynote speaker, as well as Representative Ken Buck, who is also joining us this evening. And we held a major immigration debate against The Nation magazine at George Washington University. In the coming months, we're looking forward to two very special events. The first is our annual Crony Capitalism Conference that will take place on June the 12th, and Tim Carney will be the keynote speaker talking about the subject of the opioid epidemic. And then in the fall, in September 16th in New York, we'll be having an event on rebuilding Notre Dame Cathedral and its significance for the West, featuring Sir Roger Scruton and our very own Rod Dreher. And perhaps on an even more exciting note, I'm happy to share with you that we are launching a new advisory board at the American Conservative that will be building out over the next 6 months, and Tucker Carlson from Fox News has graciously agreed to serve as chairman of the advisory board. So while the winds are blowing in the American Conservatives' direction, over the past 2 years, we've also seen the rise of 7 other conservative journals and publications, some of which are here this evening, all competing to define the future of the right. Some might see this as a battle for the soul of conservatism in the age of President Trump, but we at the American Conservative seek not so much to defeat the competition as to be the meeting place and ground floor for a new, more vital conservative program. So where do we go from here? Well, I firmly believe that the future of conservatism is bright, and that in the long run, the conservative movement will be better off for the disruption of the past 3 years, which shattered the neoconservative consensus and forced many people in Washington to rethink their long-held assumptions on issues ranging from foreign policy to crony capitalism to immigration and political economy. There is more energy and intellectual dynamism on the right today than there has been in the past 30 years. And there's no better place to turn for an example of that dynamism than to the keynote speech that was given 1 year ago this week by Patrick Deneen at our 15th anniversary gala. In it, he laid out a blueprint for conservatism that concisely summarizes our vision at the American Conservative in 3 points. First, Patrick said, America needs a foreign policy that actually puts America and our veterans first by being mindful of, quote, that great conservative awareness of unintended consequences and the insufficiency and even danger of good intentions. Second, America needs an economy that serves its citizenry, not a few elites who themselves benefit from high rates of globalization, open borders, and the financialization of the economy. And third, he said that America needs a revival of social or traditional conservatism of the kind that was once again written about in our founding editorial, which states, "We believe conservatism to be the most natural political tendency, rooted in man's taste for the familiar, for faith, for family, and for God." Not only is this blueprint politically expedient for conservatives looking to win at the ballot box, it's also deeply representative of the tradition of conservative thought that we cherish at the American Conservative. From Edmund Burke to Russell Kirk, who we'll hear more about later tonight, from Robert Nisbet to Pat Buchanan, as well as of our mission to promote a Main Street conservatism. I like to describe this Main Street disposition as aristopopulism, which is just a fancy way of saying that in order for this country to work, elites need to have a sense of solidarity and obligation towards the middle class, and the middle class needs to cultivate the habits of self-government and liberal learning that were ubiquitous at the time of the American founding and when Tocqueville visited with the artisans and farmers of 19th century America. Imagine Ben Franklin meeting Rooster Cogburn, the legendary John Wayne character. Now that's a fusionism worth pondering. In all seriousness, this project, this commitment to building a new movement of Main Street conservatism is more than a mere intellectual exercise to be batted around by talking heads on Twitter. If it were, I wouldn't be here tonight, and neither should you. America is at a crossroads, and if we don't meaningfully address populist discontent and the revolt of the elites against middle America, as Christopher Lasch warned, we will quickly be torn asunder by civil discontent, the likes of which have not been seen since the Civil War. But if we can come together tonight to restore a foreign policy fit for a republic and not an empire, an economic agenda that strengthens families and the middle class, and a cultural platform with a robust understanding of citizenship, the protection of our national sovereignty, and an appreciation for our American and Western heritage, we can build a new majority that will last for a generation. As Pat Buchanan is fond of saying, the American conservative was right from the beginning. I don't say that as a pat on the back, no pun intended, but as a charge for us to stay the course and as an invitation for you to join us in building a Main Street conservative movement that can save this place that we all love. After all, America is a place with mountains and rivers, cities and towns, culture and history, traditions and institutions, and not only an idea, although we do love that idea too. Thank you for being here with us tonight to celebrate. We are grateful for your friendship, for your generosity, and your support, and we are happy to welcome you on board. In particular, I'd like you to join me in welcoming our guests of distinction this evening, keynote speaker J.D. Vance, and award winners Ross Douthat and John Utley. As well as Annette Kirk and John Henry, who will be presenting the awards. Our two retired editors with us this evening, Robert Mary and Scott McConnell, as well as Leonora Cravota and the staff at the American Conservative for helping to plan tonight's event. Moreover, please join me in thanking our many sponsors who made this evening possible, including the members of our host committee, Senator Rand Paul, Representative Justin Amash, Representative Ken Buck, Richard and Debbie Young, Howard and Roberta Amundson, George O'Neill, William Benter, Lynn Oakley, Ambassador Boyden Gray, Philip Hudner, and Don Sebastiani, who provided the wine this evening, as well as to our many organizational partners, American Affairs, American Philanthropic, the Competitive Enterprise Institute, First Things, the Fund for American Studies, the Intercollegiate Studies Institute, National Affairs, National Review, Human Events, and the Russell Kirk Center for Cultural Renewal. Thank you. Over the past year, we've given some serious thought to our vision for the future at the American Conservative, and we truly believe that now is the time for us to scale up our programs in a big way in order to shape both the future of conservatism and America. And I'm happy and humbled to share that two of our longtime supporters feel very much the same way and have generously, in the past 2 weeks, pledged $2 million as lead gifts to help us launch a $6 million 20th anniversary campaign. Thank you. And thanks to them, they would prefer to remain anonymous. And our goal is to really increase our editorial fund, to double the content on our website and our subscription base, to hire a stable of senior writers and reporters, and to launch a summer fellows program to educate the next generation of leaders and the ideas that we hold dear. So over the next 3.5 years, we'll be turning our attention to this campaign, and I'd be honored if you would consider partnering with us in any way that you can, whether it's financially, whether it's you want to start writing for the American Conservative, feel free to reach out to us, whether you just want to share our articles on social media or with your friends. We're grateful for anything that you can do to better help us accomplish our mission of promoting a Main Street conservatism. So on that note, I'll leave you with that, and I promise there'll be more details to come on our website, and I'm grateful for your time and for your friendship. Thank you.